Hello and welcome back to my channel. I'm Jack and I am here with my wonderful mom, otherwise known as Marna, but for today, Mom. I was diagnosed with ADHD as an adult in my mid-20s. If you're interested in my whole ADHD story, you can go ahead and click that link, but today we are going to go into my whole undiagnosed childhood. So I'm going to be asking questions about what my childhood was like, signs that we may have missed, my most annoying traits as an undiagnosed ADHD kid, my strengths, and all of those things. My first question is, were you surprised when I was diagnosed with ADHD in my mid-20s, and why or why not?
Okay. Definitely not surprised. And the reasons that I wasn't surprised are because there were all these signs along the way, right? But I think because of dad being so neurodivergent or something, we always just kind of assume your brain worked like dad, you know what I mean, sort of a thing, and that, you just didn't sort of think inside the box and so on. So despite the fact that, in school that they would change your seats numerous times, you would always find somebody to talk to, there was always something you would find that would distract you. So yeah, there were a lot of signs. I mean, even back to the fact that, when you were 4 and in ballet, I mean, you could not, you would be on the sidelines just, bopping up and down, and that's when we finally decided to put you in gymnastics, and you'd be all antsy and always moving when you were waiting your turn. Even just for years and years, and that's probably one of the things that annoyed me the most, sort of, but whatever. For years, let's say you went to gymnastics, cheerleading, whatever, any of your schedules, your schedules for 3 years could be the same day and the same time, right? And you remember every week you'd be like, what day do I have cheerleading? And what time do we have to leave? Do you remember all that? And I'd be I'd look at you sometimes and I'd be like, what? And I would just get so exasperated, and I'd be I think I probably said it with love and hello, Jack. I'm what planet do you live on?
Yeah. So it feels like there were both hyperactive things at play and also more of that inattentive, spacey.
Yes.
I think I was called spacey.
Absolutely.
Kid, right?
Space cadet. Oh,
yeah.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. Dad and I mean, again, don't take an insult to this.
No.
We used to sometimes we know she's really smart. I mean, we brought you to get tested, if you remember.
Yeah.
Educationally tested, because we're what are we missing here? We know she's really smart. We know, all these things, but it just wasn't putting together in school. How smart we knew you were was not transferring into the classroom. Yeah. And it was clear that the grades were just, you were bored. You were bored in school. You always wanted to find something to distract you. I mean, there were so many things.
Do you feel like I felt more inattentive or more hyperactive, or do you think it was pretty even?
I think when you were younger, it was more of a mix.
Okay.
Inattentive. I mean, I think you still clearly have a hyperactive sort of thing when you're being silly, or when you're doing stuff, or things like that. But I think certainly as you aged, to me at least, I saw you as getting much more of an inattentive dynamic going on, for lack of a better word, you know. But I mean, it's crazy, Jacqueline. Even to the time you were 10 months old, it's so far back, and I'm not even sure if it's relevant to the question, right? But it's you started walking when you were 10 months and 2 weeks, which is very early. You were so always ahead physically. And I wonder, and I never really thought about it, but as you've gotten into your thing, I really wonder if there's a correlation between kids who do early physical things versus kids who don't. Because in the same token, while you were doing all these early physical things, I mean, you did not speak. You did not.
Weird.
It is so weird, because you were so clearly, she was clearly processing everything. I think 18 months, and I remember saying to the I was really concerned at the pediatrician, and he said to me, does she follow simple directions? And I'm oh, she follows multiple, complex directions. And, again, he was this is not anything to worry about. You will catch up. And in fact, you did. But literally, you were 2.5 years old before you started talking.
So, going back a second to bringing me in for testing, I was very surprised when you took me in for testing. ADHD wasn't picked up upon. I'm curious, one, what did they pick up on? And two, why do you think maybe it was missed?
I think, one, you're a girl, and I think that it's it's always boys. At least maybe it's changing now. I mean, I think probably slowly changing, and ADHD gets looked at for girls and all that stuff now, but it didn't in your age group then. It really wasn't. It was such a a young boy thing. What happened was we brought you in because, again, we were why is this kid just bombing on tests? you know.
Yeah. And mainly tests too, right?
Yeah, mainly tests.
Yeah.
But you also did the sort of thing that, like, you know, you were the kind of kid that literally you would have an open book test.
Yeah.
And you would go to school without your book. Like,
Yeah.
you would have to take the test without your open book because you didn't bring your test. Or you would literally, there was a period of time that, like, you weren't doing homework and blah, 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 which I guess all goes in with all of this. But, you know, we didn't kill you about your grades and all that kind of stuff. But we always sort of made sure you did your homework. And I swear, I don't know how you got from point A here in this house to point B at the school, which is like 4 miles away. And you would walk 2 minutes to the bus. So you would end up without your homework at school. Also in school, the other things that there were, you know, signs that there were clearly things going on. I think more than the usual. Your desk was always like, nothing was in order.
I remember like cleaning out my gym locker always being so stressful because I had like a year's worth of like dirty socks and stuff in my gym locker and like no one else did, and I was always like so embarrassed. I would throw my clothes away. Right. I don't know if you ever noticed, but I would literally throw my clothes away and come home because I was so like no one can see like what's inside my locker.
That's so funny.
And like forks, I would always throw away forks and like Tupperware and stuff.
Absolutely. Are you kidding me? I mean, we definitely talked about that because also Dad does that. I mean, you and Dad literally both lost 2 winter jackets in one winter. Don't know how. So again, that's also all the things that like led us to just think, oh, you know, like, you know, you're just kind of spacey. Yeah. And stuff. Yeah. All right. I'm sorry. Back to the testing. Yeah. So we knew stuff was going on. And so I just think at that point in time, people weren't thinking about it for girls. Yeah. And I think also Dad and I were kind of stuck in our own ways of like, you know, you just think differently. Like Dad thinks differently. And look how much Dad's accomplished and all that kind of stuff.
Which is great also.
Basically what it showed, a very narrow, comprehensive, you know, ability to comprehend sentences that you were hearing. Auditory, thank you. Auditory issues. Yeah. Basically, that sort of cued us in more about how you were so much more of a visual learner. Yeah. And so, you know, you try to talk to teachers and you try to do that kind of stuff, but, you know, you're stuck in a system that it is what it is, as well as we're stuck in a little small school system.
Sorry, we're getting distracted because my huge dog is here.
Gypsy.
So yeah, it showed auditory processing.
Yes, auditory processing issues, and that didn't surprise anybody.
Gypsy, please be on your way.
Come on, Gypsy.
Just broadening back out, any other signs that you can think of, and it's okay if you've exhausted them, but anything else that comes up from like when I was really little or middle school or high school that you're like, okay, yeah.
Oh, so many. Okay. And I don't mean that like, I love you dearly, Jack, but a million. Oh yeah, like pretty much. But just like so many things. I mean, no drawer in this house ever got closed. Yeah. No cabinet in this house ever got shut. And it was always like, I'm closing everything. Yeah. Yeah, you would never ever walk out the door with everything you needed. Like there was just, you couldn't leave the house and have what you needed with you. Do you know what I mean? Like, right. Yeah. Oh gosh, so many things. Never knowing sort of like even what time it is sort of some days. You know what I mean? It sounds like ridiculous, but it's sort of what it sort of was.
No, I don't know if you know time blindness is actually like a really big part of ADHD.
That's interesting. I didn't know that specifically, but you definitely like exhibited those sort of time sort of things. Okay. Yeah. I think as you when you were younger, it was more of a mix. Okay. Yeah, and you would just like you moved around to a lot of things, and you would also again now I know it. Yeah. But back then I didn't know it. But like you would get so passionate and focused on things, like hyper focused on things, which now I know from you is a part of that. Now I really see this so clearly. Yeah. But I mean, just into like you were like in 3rd grade. Okay, this is a crazy story. This kid was in 3rd grade and she wanted salad bar, and they would not let her have salad bar. You could have it in 4th grade, and she just thought like that makes no sense to me. Why can I have it in 4th grade, but I can't have it in 3rd grade, and this and that? So in 3rd grade, you started a petition. You went around, you got signatures, you like talked to people. It was amazing. I mean, you turned it around. It didn't work, but it was really like, I guess it was like one of your first acts of like activism, sort of, you know? Yeah. But it was also one of your first acts. I mean, remember, you would take deep dives on a lot of stuff when you totally were into
Darfur.
Save Darfur, thank you. Did this amazing presentation at the school. So just all these like really hyper-focused things. Yeah. And also just like the kind of stuff where I would be, because like to take you to cheerleading or you know, gymnastics or something like that was literally like an hour and 15-minute drive from our house, 3 days a week or 4 days a week. And I'm not disciplined or like that in that way. But, you know, sometimes I'd be like, I didn't want to drive there. And I'd be like, hey, Jack, do you want to just like take the night off? And you'd be like, nope, gotta go. You know,
so like all or nothing.
Yes,
like
absolutely.
Really rigid.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I appreciated that. And I was like, wow, that's like really, you know, dedication. And that's a very good, great thing.
Yeah. And I appreciate that you guys saw that in me, and like I wasn't like that about school.
No,
right?
you were not about
But you
school.
can see that I was able to be disciplined and like passionate and work really hard for something I actually was interested in and cared about.
Absolutely.
Right?
It was clear on so many levels.
I feel like as I've gotten older, I've become like more and more sensory. But I think there were things from childhood too. Is there anything you can point to that you think were more like self-soothing, sensory?
Oh my gosh.
Like,
yeah, I don't mean to cut you off, but absolutely.
Yeah.
First, you were a thumb sucker.
Yeah.
From like the
Until
minute
I was old.
like old. I mean, like 12 or 13 or something like that. Not like you weren't out in the world sucking your thumb in school, but you used to worry about it.
Yeah.
Like if you were going to have friends sleep over, or like would you slip into it at school and stuff. And it's really interesting because so many people were like, you have to get her to stop sucking her thumb. And we were like, I had read about it a little bit and stuff. And it's like kids that have these self-soothing things. I mean, that was one of the first things.
Yeah.
Also, while you were sucking your thumb, you were always so tactile.
Yeah.
Literally, you would like have to rub like something soft while you were sucking your thumb. Yeah, always super, super tactile. I think when I look back, like at 6, it was like we went to fireworks and all of a sudden you didn't like them. And they were loud and they bothered you. Even when you were in school, you know, you always had issues with like something, you know, think that were bothering your skin or your stomach or you're this or you're that. And when I
was particular about clothes, how they felt.
Absolutely, tactile.
Velvet,
absolutely.
I still hate velvet.
So I just think you were very tactile.
Yeah, I do remember that I used to like shiver
when
like something would fall or something.
Oh my God.
Like a leaf or like a something.
Yes, I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
Do you know what that is or something? Is that something?
I know it. I don't know exactly, but I think that's a sensory thing, and it's something I still do. I get like the shivers all the time, and it's actually I've heard that it's like a tick a little bit actually.
Interesting. Yeah. That's interesting.
Yeah. Which I think makes a lot of sense, and I do like still to this day. This is like a kind of weird thing, but like if I see anytime I see a dead animal, like roadkill, not like a dead animal.
Oh my God, I
always get uncontrollable chills, but it can be about like random stuff too. Something like feels weird.
Yes, it's so funny. Just back to the roadkill thing, we had this thing. I don't know if you remember us saying it. We were like dead mitten in the road because you were so sensitive to it that like if we saw anything in the road, we'd be like it must be a dead mitten. Right. You know, but we didn't say dead mitten. We'd be like a mitten, so it became the dead mitten in the road. You know what I mean?
Do you think I was a sensitive kid?
Oh my gosh, yes.
We haven't actually ever talked about
we haven't.
This. Yeah,
but I think you were a very sensitive kid, and I think you were oddly enough, or maybe not oddly, I think you were more sensitive for other kids than you were on your own behalf. Younger,
I'm still like that.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I think you were more sensitive on other kids' behalves. But yeah, you were always really sensitive. I mean,
I was like tuned into other people's emotional states, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, in a lot of ways. I mean, even when Graham would come, you know, and you know, you could see she'd feel a little bit away. You'd come and you just snuggle with her, and she'd read a book. So yeah, you were always really sensitive to other people's what was going on with other people around you.
Yeah.
I mean, even when you were like, between 10 months, again, when you started walking to 10 and a half months, you were like the kind of kid that we couldn't go to a restaurant without you like getting up and wanting to like go to every table and check everybody out, and you know. Literally, you would end up sometimes I'd be like, is she bothering you? And you'd be like, they'd be like, no, she's great. But you would want to sit down with them. And it was just, you know, you were really like all over the place and concerned with what was going on, like with so many things.
So funny.
I think as you got older, you got more like self things then. I mean, I know you're still very
That's interesting. I think as you get older too, there's like a masking and like a toning down certain behaviors that happen.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. When you're younger, you kind of just blurt out. You don't have the filters yet of what's like, you know, appropriate or what's not appropriate.
Yeah. Any other school stuff?
There was not a year that went by that teachers didn't call, you know, and talk about how they knew you were smart, but you didn't have your work and you didn't do this and you were disruptive in the classroom, and not disruptive like you were, but you would talk. And like in Spanish, for example, like I think you occupied every single seat, right? Did you?
Yeah.
I think every single seat. And Mrs. Barnett, right? And Mrs. Barnett would be like, no matter where I put that girl, she'd find somebody to talk to. Yeah, exactly. So you would find you were already getting inattentive that way. Plus it wasn't getting processed, like let alone it wasn't getting processed auditorily. Yeah. And that's in a second language. Yeah. You know what I mean? So you're not processing like your own language like the best, and then they would throw that in and you would just like, you know, whatever. You would also, even if like you would get put at the window, that outdoors was much more fascinating to you than what was going on in that classroom. Yeah, and in school also just like year to year. I don't remember, what did Mr. Frawley call that time or whatever. Like there was just always something, you
well,
know.
I was also really, this is probably not as related to ADHD, but like I was politically very like left in a very right-wing town.
Yes.
So especially in like history classes, like I would speak up and I
Yes.
would say like, I would literally say like Christopher Columbus is a piece of shit.
And
And I would get like in trouble for it, but I was like, this is bullshit what you're teaching. I was like, you realize this was written by like a white man who's
Right.
probably like a racist asshole, right?
That's right. And, plus,
and I would
right.
say stuff like
That's
that.
right, and I know you would. And we were on your side, and we were always,
Right.
not like in that
Right.
regard, like, we wouldn't be like, you know, tell the teacher that,
Right.
but we were like, no, Columbus did not discover
Right.
America, you know,
Right.
the indigenous peoples were already here,
Right,
you know,
like a little
but whatever.
defiant about
Yes,
this.
oh, absolutely, and I get that. You were definitely a little bit, you know, not politically in line with a lot of the kids in
Yeah.
school, and you would literally, like, speak out about it, and you would speak out about kids getting bullied, and remember that girl that, like, beat you up? We had to come to the school, and that was something that was, like, because you were defending somebody.
Well, that's probably a conversation
For
for
another
another
day.
day, but that was also, I'm almost positive in retrospect, a lot of anti-Semitism.
Oh, there was a ton of
Yeah.
anti-Semitism in the
Yeah.
school, but yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I was like the little like Jewish ADHD like left-wing
Yes.
kid in like a conservative.
Yes.
Okay, so you mentioned some of these already, like the cabinets and like the never knowing what day it was and things like that, which is so funny because it makes so much sense that like as I got into college, it becomes so evident because you were managing that for me, for my life, like you
Right,
were managing
right,
my schedule,
right,
and I was just
exactly.
able to be like,
Yeah, right.
she said it's time to go to gymnastics, so let's go to gymnastics, I guess.
It's true. It was like
Right.
that. It really was.
Yeah, yeah. And then you hit like adulthood, and all of a sudden it's like, well, I have to manage my schedule.
Right.
Like, what is this?
Right,
And
right.
that's a really common experience, is
Like,
like
yeah.
getting diagnosed in college or especially grad school. So I know you mentioned some things already, but like a big roast. What were like the most annoying things about that were like probably ADHD related about me as a kid?
Okay, I think some of the most boring things
Yeah.
were just like having to tell you something a million
Yeah.
times because I'm not the most patient person. Like you'd have to hand you this, and you know, like going out the door, you know, like did you have your phone? And before phones even,
Yeah.
did you have your bag? Did you have your
Yeah.
coat? Did you have your homework?
Yeah.
Did you have this? This is the time. Do you remember that you're going here? Do you remember that you
Yeah.
have a doctor's appointment? You know, all those sort of things, like just on a
Yeah.
sort of a daily basis.
Uh-huh.
I mean, nothing that really sticks out is like this horrible, like,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, sort of thing, but just like on a daily basis, pretty much.
Yeah, I just like didn't know what was going on.
Right. Everything was left open, toothpaste are left open,
Yeah.
like that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Yeah.
And that like matches what my experience felt like as a kid. Like when I think back, like I felt spacey.
Yes.
Like I felt like I was just kind of like floating through. I was paying attention to things, and actually like inattentive types actually have, generally speaking, it's a horrible name for it, but generally have an excess of attention and generally have just a difficulty regulating where that attention goes.
Yes.
So it's not that I wasn't paying attention. I was
Yes.
just paying attention to who knows what, not
Right.
the things that you need to
No.
like function properly.
Right. Right. No,
Yeah.
I get that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But for me, it was like,
Yeah.
and that's when I'd start worrying. I'm like, what the heck is
Right.
like going on here?
Right.
You know, like I just
Right.
never got it, you
Yeah.
know? And I mean, again, knowing what I know now, you know, and also, like I said, that also would kind of drive me crazy. I swear, I cannot tell you how many sets of, this is so stupid, but how many sets of teaspoons have I bought?
Yeah.
Just stupid
Yeah,
stuff,
yeah,
like
yeah.
everything would get thrown out.
Mhm.
You know, nothing would come back, like nothing was kept track of.
Yep.
You know, that kind of thing. I mean, but there's so many things
Yeah.
that you just weren't, you know, like, yeah, I mean.
Like my room is a mess.
Oh my God, forget about that. That was just even like, I have never seen somebody that can like take apart a room in less time than you.
Still kind of.
Yeah. I'd say like on a weekly basis for a long period of time, I was either like having to run something to your school, or Dad would get a call from like the library, or I mean the Y,
Yeah.
saying he left his computer there,
Yeah.
and you would leave things.
ADHD is genetic, so it's so common for people not to get diagnosed because you're just used to it.
Yes,
So
absolutely. Oh my God,
there's like a lot of
absolutely.
things now that I'm like, oh, I just thought that was normal, and now like going out into the world, I'm like, no, that was like normal within our household. But
Absolutely.
that is not
No,
normal.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, and that's
Or,
the
like,
thing also.
neurotypical,
Right,
yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Because I was just like, you're just like Dad.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In that regard,
Right,
like, and I
right.
was just like, yeah, it's just
Yeah.
how it is. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? He's got this other brain. He's always like that. But like, look at him. He's
Yeah.
like brilliant, and he's
Yeah.
got 37,000, interests and knows about him. He's so eclectic, and that's so you. You know. And again, going back to that's what I'm going to say. Newports.
Yeah.
In a 2-year period, you literally got this like Oxfam organization up, running. You did an amazing amount of work for like in a 2-year period that I think few people that probably weren't ADHD that couldn't hyperfocus couldn't have done. So I think in some ways it's given you an advantage in some ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I absolutely think so too. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You were just mentioning like some strengths that I have now, right? Like, can you see any like of those strengths when I was a kid, when I was growing up?
Oh yeah. Firstly, you had like, it's interesting, and I'm not exactly sure if it's related, but like in school, we were so not worried about your grades and all that kind of stuff. And like, again, we knew you were smart, but you had like an emotional high IQ, you know what I mean? That kind of stuff, that, the charisma, because you were a charismatic person, that kind of, stuff is the stuff that really takes you far. And I think in your life, your ability to be able to connect with people that way has, afforded you certain opportunities that other people wouldn't have gotten. But I just think of the strengths, like I think probably because you had to organize so much, and maybe like if we had helped you earlier with it, and I know you don't harbor anything and we don't harbor anything, and I know like we were like chill with like the grades and the whole thing and all that, but it's like now the way you like set out your bullet points, maybe I mean probably you were too, it wouldn't have worked because you but I mean maybe it would have behooved us to try to get you like more organized or something like that. So I think like some of those challenges for you have led you to be just this really organized person who can like get things done and get it done on a schedule and do it, and I think that is a strength of yours. I think it also gives you like more empathy towards people, and I think it gives you a lot more insight into people and stuff, like I just think when you have challenges when you're younger and when you're more, I think for you, your like ADHD and tendency to be sort of maybe inattentive has led you to have to be a better listener and have to sort of these kind of things, and I think it's the things that have you developed as strength as a result of that still are things that are a challenge, clearly, but yeah, I think those have developed into a lot of strengths for you.
I think one of my favorite parts of ADHD, and again, like you can listen to all my thoughts on ADHD on my video, is that since my brain doesn't fit in sort of with the way things like the norm, right, like this just like societal norms, I've been like forced, and I think this is true across the board, to really be more intentional and like thoughtful around like what's important to me, how do I want to spend my time, how do I want to do things, what's going to like actually work for me.
Absolutely.
Which everyone would benefit from doing.
Yes, absolutely people would, but I think that's something, yes, and I think in some ways because of that you almost get to know yourself better than some people do. It is all very interesting because like for me also looking at back now, knowing that you have this diagnosis and going
it's like duh, right?
Oh my god, yes. So obvious with so many things. I mean from morning till night, your sleep patterns, not being able to sleep really at night. Girls on our side of the family seem to have insomnia. What is it, and probably that's like your mind just like playing over things and not being able to rest and all those kind of things.
And didn't I like always need time before bed?
Oh, and yes.
When I was like little.
Yes,
even?
absolutely. Yeah, and I think in the end it's a really good thing. I think all three of us, like in this household now, like living here right now, like just you visiting us, it's really funny because I think so many people would think that if you're like visiting somebody, and I know I'm fidgeting now because like whatever, but anyway, I do that, but I'm not ADHD, no. But anyway, like it's just so normative to our family.
Yes.
To like everybody wants to separate, so that like even if you're visiting somebody and you haven't seen them for 6 months, like I'm sorry, but I need to say goodbye at 11 or 10 or whatever it is because you just need you need a period to really chill and be by yourself and recharge.
Okay, I have one final question, but before I ask it, is there anything you want to add?
I don't think so at the moment. Like I said, it's like when I look back, it was really so obvious and so evident. Oh, that's one of the other things. In your bed, tactile.
Yeah.
I could show you pictures, or you could post one on this thing. I have a picture like in your crib. Do you remember you would like, there were 4,000, you had to have all your babies. They were your babies. And like every stuffed animals, you remember, and everything was in your crib. And Jacqueline, you did not want to get out of your crib also. That's another thing that I think is really interesting. We had that like little Tyke's bed for you, the little ginger cottage thing, but you did not want to leave your crib. And like we just weren't going to push it. And like all of a sudden one day you did, but like you lived in your crib of like I'm not going to be without my babies, and it would be like every doll you owned and everything. But I think that's also one of those things. It was also tactile and stuff.
Well, I still like more enclosed spaces. The only thing I remember about the dolls, which I think is speaking more to like, I think a lot of the conversation of like ADHD and empathy is like a really interesting one because people fall on different ends, but there's a lot of hyper empathy with a lot of people with ADHD. Hyper empathy.
Yes.
And I think I experienced that. And I've never thought of this until just this second. I remember having to say goodnight, and actually, like, I almost wonder now, like, this is just coming to me, if there was like a tiny like OCD piece here. I had to say goodnight to every single one of the dolls, and I could not miss a single one.
Yes,
and I
did.
could not, if I missed one, I would like start again and like say goodnight to like every single one of my dolls.
Yes, you did. I thought I was following. Sorry. Yes, you did.
Yeah.
Yes, you were
because
very.
But it was because I didn't want to like hurt one of their. I didn't want to like treat one of them like worse.
Absolutely, absolutely. Which is like, you know, an interesting thing. I wonder if like ADHD people do that more too. It's like anthropomorphizing objects and stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like infusing objects and things with like you feel bad for the stuffed animal at the garage sale, so you can't have to get it because you're not going to leave the stuffed animal there. Like, what is that about? You know, exactly.
Yeah,
but like,
super interesting.
So that's kind of stuff with you too that was going on. And I'm not sure if there's any relation to that.
I mean, the only thing I know now is that almost every person I've talked to with ADHD feels like unusually like connected and attached to like characters in books, TVs, and movies.
Interesting.
Like to the point where like when something ends, it's like heartbreaking, and like you feel like they're like your best friend. Like I've talked to people about it, and it's like most of the people with ADHD I've talked to are like unbelievably attached to like fictional characters.
That's interesting. Yeah. That's really interesting. Yeah, because you would do that and stuff. But I think that's because of an empathy thing, and like it's like I think it's also because you like you don't realize like when I look back, I would be like, really, you felt shame? You know, I'm like I'm so surprised about all that stuff because like you know, to us you like seem like such this confident hi and this kid and you know blah blah blah. But like it's even I said it to you recently. I said like so no when I look back I can see why because I even said to you like for me like I would always you know Marna doesn't finish anything. Do you know what I mean? It would be like a shame. I didn't know that. I think I felt a shame around it, but I think I did. And I think when I think about it now, it makes me feel inadequate. So I think like I can see how it was such.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that leads perfectly to my final question, which is putting you on the spot for once of this interview. I have been telling you for ages now that I think you have ADHD.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Are you convinced yet? Why or why not?
Yeah, I am.
You are?
Yes.
Okay,
I am. I think you're probably surprised about that, but I think it's because it's like when I really like, it's also because I know so much more from you now.
Yeah. You're not looking at ADHD through this like
exactly.
Really
I'm not looking at through this lens of like no, I you know, and I know I leave doors open, but you know, I'm not looking through this lens of like because I have that thing, you know, I do where like your dad will say, "Where's the knife?" and I see it. I see it in my brain. It like registers. Yeah. It's almost too much attention to detail. Yeah. You know what I mean? I almost wish I could like put my brain off. Yeah. But yeah, so I forgot what you asked. So yes.
That's so
okay. So yes.
The question is, are you convinced you have ADHD?
Yes, I am. Because I don't look at it as such a narrow way anymore. Yeah. Yes. And I just see it. Yes. Yeah. I mean, besides the fact that I talk 4,000 miles an hour and I'm really hyper and all that kind of stuff. Right.
Yeah. And some of the stuff where I've told you over, like that thing we just talked about, where I was like, yeah, it's really common for ADHD people to feel shame around. Like, you have all these ideas and you're really passionate and then you don't follow through. And so a lot of people stop trying because there's so much shame. I mean, almost all of my clients. So it's things like that.
Yes. You know, I think part of the reason also, just to back up for a second, like with school, I don't think we wanted you with a diagnosis in school.
Okay. Yep.
Do you know what I mean?
Yep.
Because perhaps it's different now in different schools and whatever. I don't know. Yep. But putting you with that diagnosis was going to mean that in that school particularly, you were going to be treated as other. You were already treated as other enough because we were like not from this area and we were Jewish and we had brown hair as opposed to everybody that was blonde in school. Yeah. You know, just stupid stuff like that. But yeah.
That makes sense. And I mean, I feel like in ways, I'm like, yeah, I wish I was diagnosed earlier in ways, but also I do feel like you guys, like ADHD, even though it was unnamed, was always treated as like, hey, you're different. That doesn't mean that's wrong or bad. Like, so you're not going to do great in math, but like, why don't we get you into cheerleading where you can like climb your way up and like do amazing? Or
or like take you out of it. I mean, take you out of ballet, stick you in gymnastics, take you out of this, put you in that. You know what I mean? Like extemporaneous speaking. Yeah. Crazy thing when you got into FFA, like, and you started doing all that stuff. I mean, you were amazing. Like, you won awards for extemporaneous speaking and all that kind of stuff. But that's what I mean. It was like, you loved that, so you did it. So we knew.
And I think like label or not,
right?
Then and now, it's just how I view like being ADHD now. It's just like different.
Yeah, it's just neurodivergent, right?
It's just neurodivergent. It's different. It's not good, bad, wrong, right? Otherwise, it's just different, and you get to make your life work for that.
Absolutely.
If the life doesn't work for it, which it won't probably.
Right.
Yeah. Any final thoughts?
I think in so many ways, the fact that you're like an ADHD person, I think has made you who you are, and has made you this like amazing. Again, challenges for me is who I am, for who I am, stuff, because I can be not the most patient person, so I'm like, how many freaking times do I have to say this?
Well, that's like that more hyperactive.
I guess, right. Yeah. Or like, hello, yes, you've been going for one, and I get like, literally the physical, like, you have been going for every Wednesday night, it gets me like that. Yeah. And that's probably the hyperactivity stuff, but So I just think it gave me more an appreciation of like direction in your life, you being an entrepreneur and have all these things in your life different, different. It gives me more compassion for you, you know what I mean, instead of like like that. So
Okay. That's it, everyone. Thank you. I would love to hear if you have ADHD signs from your childhood that you're now like, duh, or if you know someone who had ADHD signs from their childhood. So let us know in the comments, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.